Blake Lively is likely to join Ryan Reynolds at the top of the box office this weekend with It Ends With Us, and I've got my thoughts on the movie right now. Hello everybody, I'm Dan Murrell here with my thoughts on It Ends With Us, which hits theaters this weekend and I think is perhaps poised to be a sleeper summer hit. The film is from director Justin Baldoni, who also directed 2019's 5 Feet Apart, among other things. He also plays one of the main roles, which we'll get to in a few minutes. The script is from Christy Hall, whose debut as a writer-director, Daddy-O, was released earlier this year, and it's based on the novel by Colleen Hoover. Now, no matter how plugged in you are, no matter how many different things you watch or read, you will always have what I call cultural blind spots, and they're not the same for everybody. These are the things that people are shocked to hear that you haven't heard of. So I have to admit that going into this movie, or at least before I'd seen the trailers and everything, I had never heard of It Ends With Us or Colleen Hoover. It turns out that the book was a #1 best-selling New York Times novel, the best-selling novel of 2022 and 2023, and broke out as a TikTok sensation, which, as someone who is not in, let's say, the TikTok generation, might explain my ignorance. So obviously I'm not plugged into the book world, but movies are much more my area of expertise. And when I saw that It Ends With Us was poised to be a late summer hit, I decided that I wanted to check it out because I don't want to, as a movie fan and a movie critic, just see the movies that I've heard of or that fall into my areas of interest. I want to see as many different kinds of movies as I possibly can. So I headed out last night to a nearly sold out early access screening for the public to see what It Ends With Us is all about. And I have to admit that for the first third of the movie or so, I thought I had it pegged as what had kind of been described to me when I asked people about Colleen Hoover, which is sort of a soapy melodrama. Blake Lively plays Lily Bloom, who's just opened up, yes, a flower shop in Boston, when she crosses paths with a handsome neurosurgeon named Ryle Kincaid.
What do you do for a living?
Neurosurgeon. Is that funny?
Jesus, you're serious.
Yeah.
Ryle is a womanizer who decides to give a real relationship a shot, and Lily seems to have found the perfect man until his dark side emerges and she finds herself falling into the same patterns that haunted her mother throughout her childhood. Ryle is played by director Justin Baldoni, and I'd really like to unpack the psychology of looking for an actor to play a charming, successful doctor with a dangerous dark side and thinking, you know what? I'd be perfect for that part. Amidst all this drama, enter Atlas Corrigan, played by 1923's Brandon Sklenar, Lily's teenage love who sees the effects of Ryle's abusive behavior and encourages her to leave him.
I don't want to get you in trouble or anything.
Hey, well, how do I find you?
If
I wanted to find you.
Now, you might think that the rest of the movie from here is a torrid love triangle that culminates in a tearful monologue from Lily as she leaves Ryle behind and shows up on Atlas's doorstep, probably in the rain, for a credit-rolling kiss. But there is more to this movie than the usual paperback cliches. It Ends With Us, at least the movie version, reminds me a lot of a Flintstones vitamin. I might be dating myself a little bit there, but hear me out. It has a sweet, almost saccharine exterior, but inside, you can actually find something that I think has great value. As Lily's relationship with Ryle spirals, the story becomes less about the romance and more of an effective drama about cycles of abuse and the lies that we tell ourselves to maintain the illusion that we're not falling into them. Yes, there are parts that are infused with heavy-handed melodrama, but there are also parts of the movie that are genuinely frightening, not because Ryle is evil on the surface, but because he is so good at hiding his true nature. So good that Lily begins to question herself and whether she's the one who's misinterpreting things. It is a stark reminder, quite frankly, of the living hell that victims of domestic abuse, mainly women, some men as well, live in and day out. It would be very easy to write off It Ends With Us as just another cheap cash-in off a best-selling book or as the proverbial chick flick, because movies marketed predominantly to women are often dismissed this way, whether they're good or not. But It Ends With Us actually has something important to say. And it doesn't trivialize that by insulting the audience's intelligence or by overly sensationalizing it or by just shoving it into the background of one of those cliche love triangles that I mentioned. Blake Lively actually anchors the film well as she explores her own character's history and begins to realize that she's becoming the one thing that she swore not to become, which is a victim. If anything, the element that seems shoehorned in is Atlas and the conflict that arises when he re-enters the picture. I suspect that this love story is the sugarcoating that was needed to package this story in a mass market way. After all, a harrowing story of abuse isn't quite as easy to sell to a mainstream audience as a promised love triangle between one woman, the man that she loved when they were kids, and her dream husband from the dark side. I will say, though, that her history with Atlas is given just enough relevance to the more weighty parts of the story to not make him feel completely superfluous, and it really tips the movie in a better direction. I'd be curious to know how my perception as a non-reader matches with someone who's familiar with the book. There are elements of the story, like the soap opera names and telenovela twists, that suggest that it may not perhaps be the best book ever published. But if that's the case, it didn't translate to the screenplay. I suspect that Christy Hall's work in adapting this to the screen may have improved on the book in some ways, but I will leave that determination to people who are far more knowledgeable than I am about the original book, which is zero. I know nothing about it. Is It Ends With Us a great movie? I don't think so, but I think it serves an important purpose. It is a platform for an important issue that too often goes unsaid or unheard. The pulpier plot elements may exist to sell tickets, but I think that if there's one person that goes to this movie and sees their life or elements of their life on screen and decides to take action because of that, that's objectively a good thing. Now, in my research for this review, as I've tried to kind of get some basic knowledge about the background of this movie and the background of the story, I've seen that there are criticisms, particularly of the original work, that it doesn't go far enough in its conclusions about abuse. And I see where those viewpoints are coming from. But at the same time, I think it's important to, as they say, not let perfect be the enemy of good. It's hard to get a perfect message or a perfect telling of a story on screen or on the page, but I think that there is some good that could be done by this film. It Ends With Us isn't a perfect movie, far from it, but I think it has the capacity to do good. And apart from that, I think it also has enough strengths in its storytelling and acting to outweigh the cliches and melodrama that, yes, are also present. So on my personal scale, I'm putting it actually in the low grade of the it's good category, with the disclaimer that survivors of abuse or those who are close to them may find this movie difficult to watch. So those are my thoughts on It Ends With Us. What do you think? Let me know down in the comments below. And as always, stay tuned right here. I've got more movie reviews coming out for a couple of other films that are coming out this weekend. And of course, I'll have box office and movie news and everything else we do here on the channel coming up. Until next time, stay safe, and I'll see you then.